Graham Vincent, violin maker and musician. Hi. We're getting towards the end of September 2024 and haven't done a video for a little while. I am going to be putting together a complete video about the build of this violin that I'm working on at the moment, which is a bog oak violin, an octave violin, so that should be quite interesting. But I mean, I don't want to do a Q&A, but I thought I'd just have and I've done this before, I'm just going to carry on working and have a general witter about a couple of subjects that have come to mind, and hopefully some of it will be interesting. So at the moment I'm just working on this bog oak back. I've done the outside shaping, I've done the purfling. The purfling's quite interesting. It's just I've just done a single line. If you can see that, probably not. But I've just done a single line of darker bog oak rather than black, white, black. So I've just got one larger, thicker, heavier line of just dark brown, so to speak. Yeah, and I've just measured this back because obviously oak is a fairly dense timber, but it's also quite a strong timber. What I don't want, what I'm being really careful with this violin is not to make it, you know, a real heavyweight. I don't want that. So, I mean, why isn't that turning on? Hang on, let me turn that, there we go. So, I am actually being quite careful to weigh the plates as I go, just to make sure that it doesn't come in as, you know, a real big Bertha, so to speak. So basically, I mean, oak is a pretty strong timber, and obviously an arch shape is a intrinsically strong form in itself. So my usual technique of flexing and so on, you know, I'm using that very much, and it still feels very stiff, although we're already below probably my normal thickness. So I'm sort of gently taking this on down, and my target is to get the back in at 100 grams. And where are we at the moment? Hang on a minute. That can't be right. That's saying it's 60 grams. That can't be right. What's going on? I'm suspicious of that. It says it's 62 grams. That cannot be right. I think it's heavier than that. Perhaps it's what this was standing on. Maybe it was on a piece of shaving or something. So let's have another go. Let's reset the tare. Naught grams, good. There we go. 119 grams. So yeah, it was on an uneven surface or something. I was going to say, I didn't think it was 60 grams for sure. So, just using the Stradivarius thickness marker, which is behind me here, this thing, which you've seen in other videos. I've taken that down to under 2 millimeters now. So, it's still got to lose about 10% of its weight. I would say take things down until you start to worry about them. I think that's definitely going to be the case on this one. This piece of wood is beautiful. Bog oak is, I'm sure you know, or maybe you don't know, I'll discuss it anyway. I mean, bog oak basically is timber, but very old timber, sometimes 4,000–6,000 years old, which has fallen over and landed within a few years of, yeah, it's ended up for whatever reason in a bog, in soft ground. And bogs tend to be anaerobic, that is to say there's no oxygen, and in the right conditions this anaerobic sort of environment can actually preserve the sort of stuff that falls into it for a very long time. it's like these preserved human bodies that they sometimes find in peat. If something as vulnerable as a human body can be preserved in peat for a very long time, then imagine something as tough and resistant as oak. You know, it literally, this piece of timber here is about 4,000 years old, which is just incredible. When you consider that puts it back, I think, just before the pyramids, isn't it? Before Stonehenge, 4,000 years ago. I think there was still 4,000 odd years ago. There was still one or two islands which had woolly mammoths surviving on them. It's after the flooding of Doggerland. So Great Britain, the British Isles were no longer connected to mainland Europe at that stage, but nevertheless, this piece of wood comes from a completely different time, when the world was very, very different. So it feels quite wonderful. It feels like quite an honour to be working on this. Now you're probably wondering what makes me feel that oak is a sensible and possible kind of choice of timber for a violin anyway. And I've got two answers to that. One is to refer you back to everything I've always said, which is hold up a piece of timber and tap it, and if it resonates, it's going to be fine for making musical instruments. If it doesn't, don't use it. So that's my de facto answer. That's the one that I would suggest. You know, that's the principal test for me. And the other one is that I have a mate called Andrew Parrish, who's what has he built now? About 10 violins now, something like that. And for whatever reason, very early on, he just thought, you know, I love oak. I love making things in oak. I'm going to make violins in oak. And some of his violins sound absolutely beautiful. So, you know, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Yeah, it's all very well me saying, does it resonate? But Mr. Parrish, Andy, has actually produced some lovely sounding violins. So it is possible to make a fine sounding violin in oak. So thank you, Andy, for that. I think you've inspired me on this one. And then there's oak is a funny timber because it's kind of, it's almost, I mean, it's not the national tree of England or something as far as I'm aware, but it's very much entwined with English, particularly English, but British, particularly English history. You know, all those huge warships in the Royal Navy were all built of oak, and they reckoned it took about 1,000 oak trees to make one of the large warships. So this England used to be quite a woody nation, forested, but by the time the Royal Navy had got to its sort of peak, a lot of the woodlands had been cut down. It's funny actually, I remember reading a few years ago now that basically England has more woodland now than it's had at any time since the mid 1700s because of the sort of well, two things. First of all was charcoal production at the for the Industrial Revolution, and the other was the production of warships. And It was only when people started, what was it? They worked out how to make coke from coal, I think it was, that which they used in steel production. That took over from charcoal. And suddenly, people needed to cut down fewer trees. I feel like I've gone rather off topic here. Anyway. So I'm working entirely with a scraper now. I'm leaving the area around the soundpost a little bit thicker, but I'm taking the rest down in an effort to get nearer to my 100 grams. I don't want to make this a Q&A session, but I will actually just have a chat about a couple of questions that appeared on a couple of my videos recently. I won't name any names because I haven't got them here. I'm working on my first violin build. I haven't cut or glued on the rib blocks yet. What are your thoughts on rib height, rib taper and glue block height? I learn a lot from your Q&A videos. Thank you. Thanks for all you do. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. There are two things to address here. Well, first of all, what I do, I make all my ribs 30 mil with no taper. So in this case, this cornerless violin, but basically if it had corner blocks, everything, I take down to 30 mil. No taper. That's just, it's something I've always done. It's something that's always worked for me. Sometimes I wonder if I've missed the trick and if I shouldn't actually taper them. But I don't. Sometimes I think maybe I should make one which is tapered just to see if it makes any difference. So yeah, I probably will at some stage. Then there's further from that, there are people who, like me, just make it one uniform height. There are people who make it a uniform taper, so basically it's the top of the rib garland is flat on both the front and the back, with sort of like maybe 31 down to 29.8 or something. And then there's another group of people who actually believe in putting some tension generally on the back. Which means that they would, for example, have, I'm just picking figures at random, don't use these figures, but for example, at the bottom block, that might be 31, and then it might be nearly 31 in the center, on the lower bout, on the lower corner block. Upper corner block, it might be just a tiny bit less than that, and then dropping significantly, maybe another millimeter at the top block, so that when you actually glue the back on, you're having to sort of put some spring into it. And I think the reasoning for that is that that bit of tension somehow improves the sound or helps to counteract the tension from the strings or something. I don't know. But all I can say is that if you look at how little effort it takes to push that back into place, I mean, it's just like you can do it with one finger, compared with the amount of tension that you end up on the front, you know, from the strings, throughout the whole instrument, from the strings. It's such an inconsequentially small amount of additional tension in any one direction that I personally don't believe that it makes any difference. As I say, I kind of see it as inconsequential, I'm afraid. So yeah, that's my take on that. But you know, what do I know? It's interesting to see what different people do. Make up your own minds about what's good and what's sensible and what isn't. And no, I don't believe. I mean, I think there are very few parts of violin making where there is a definite right and a wrong. So it's just a different approach. Right, another question. What did I have? Hi, Graham. Once in place, would it be a good idea to pop a drop of super glue on each end of the sound post? Could be done with an adapted syringe, maybe. Yeah, it's something that that's something that amateur builders and especially amateur repair people have done in the past, and it doesn't make for a better sounding instrument, and it doesn't make for easy repair work, that's for sure. So, I mean, I think we can all fully understand why you might be tempted to do that. But let me let you into a little secret, okay? And this is something that I do. I don't know if anybody else has done it. This is something, or maybe it's common practice, I don't know, but this is something that I kind of came up with. You know how wood becomes quite polished in usage, with working and so on. Like this is very shiny, and so a sound post on this will skit about. So what I have done, and it's kind of very similar idea to what you're mentioning here, is I have actually wetted the end of the sound post when I fit it finally. So I've fitted it, got it to size and everything, taken it out, and then I just wet the ends of the sound post sometimes, put it back in, and what that dampness does is it causes the little local area at the foot of the sound post to actually sort of plim up, to roughen up, it kind of gets rid of the shine. It's like you know what a drop of water left to dry on a piece of shiny timber looks like. It just roughens the surface slightly, so it makes it a bit less slippy, shall we say, tiny bit of grip without it being glued in. It doesn't interfere with the free movement of the sound post. It doesn't interfere with removing it. It just gives you an extra few percentage chance of it staying in place. And especially because, and I'm going to do a video on sound posts, sound post adjustment and bridges and bridge adjustment with a view to how that affects the sound. But I personally think that the tightness with which a bridge is put in, the tightness with which a sound post is put in place is possibly more influential on the sound, or every bit as influential on the sound as the actual position, within reason. So I tend to like to put my sound posts in so that they should stay up quite happily on their own when changing strings, etc., as long as the violin's down and you don't knock it about. The temptation when you're exporting stuff and so on is to fit soundposts really tightly so that you don't have to worry about them falling over. But like I say, I think that has a bad effect on the sound. Right, how are we doing on weight? I don't think it's shed that much, but let's have a quick look. I think there's a bit more work to do. There certainly is a bit more work to do. I appear to have only managed to shave off 6 grams, so I better keep going. Right, I'm going to call it a day there. Yeah, thanks very much for listening. Look after yourselves. Cheers, folks. Bye.